Hey, greetings fellow makers. Bill here over at Punished Props. It's time for Prop Live Q&A, your weekly prop and costume making question and answer session. I'm Bill, and today we're going to be tackling your technique questions, or costume or cosplay related questions, or beard questions. Whatever you got, throw them my way. Happy to have you guys here. We got the Prop Tarts in the chat right there hanging out with us because they're awesome. All the usual suspects are here. Most of them anyway. Hey, Patch isn't here yet. He'll probably be late. Good to see everyone here for another session. We are not at San Diego Comic-Con this weekend. That's going on right now. So keeping an eye on that, but we're not there. But there are plenty of Prop Tarts there this weekend. So if you guys are hanging out, go find Evil Ted. I know he was doing a bit of a meetup. So go find Ted. Go say hi. Tell him we sent you. And I hope you guys are having a good time down in San Diego. Well, we are here in Seattle. And it's pretty nice up here too. So let's see. What do we have going on this week? Well, something I want to show off that's just really, really cool is our buddy Frank. You guys know Frank Ippolito. Why? Hold on one second. I've got a big old thing showing up on the thing. I don't know what's going on there. Alright. I have all these YouTube analytics showing up on my page. I don't know why. Cool. Alright. Anyway, our buddy Frank Ippolito worked on this really cool Blizzard project. It's the Lich King. How cool is that? And our buddy Steven Meisner, aka Solo Roboto, is in the suit. I believe he worked on it too. A bunch of our friends worked with Frank on this. There's Norm checking it out. There's a video on Tested where you can go see, and they're going to do a lot more videos on this build, a lot more in-depth videos. But this costume, I believe, is at Comic-Con right now, and it's crazy awesome. They did it for a Hearthstone expansion, but it's really cool. So we'll have a link to that video in the show notes. You guys can go check that out, or just go to Tested's page and give it a look-see. It's really, really cool. I got to see a bunch of that stuff in person last time I was in LA, and it's freaking awesome. Including a giant sword. Giant Frostmourne sword. What else? Oh, this week, by the way, over on the old YouTube channel, I collaborated with our friend Zombie. You know Zombie, aka Grace. She was on Cosplay Melee, and she's an awesome person. We collaborated on the Ord sword build, the orc sword that I made, and we did a couple of videos together. So this is Grace's video. We did all the building in her video, and then we did the painting in my video. So it's worth checking out both of those. There you can see the design that you guys helped me make. You guys helped with that one on a live stream a couple of weeks ago. So that's the video that I put up earlier this week. And you guys got to go check it out. Go check out especially Grace's contribution, because she's awesome. Go subscribe to her. She's wicked cool. Look up Zon Zombie on YouTube. Also, we're doing our 3D printing videos now because I'm a crazy person, so I've decided to add another video each week. So last week we did the Thirst Zapper project with another friend of ours. This is Allie Williams. She has an awesome costume, an awesome Nuka Girl costume. Whoop. And we teamed up, and I helped her make this crazy cool Nuka-Cola blaster. So that video is up on the channel. And this really kind of marks the beginning of our next batch of 3D printing videos. In fact, if you guys in the chat right now live want to ask me any questions about 3D printing during today's Q&A session, submit your questions. punishprops.com/live. That's where you go to send in your questions. Send them anytime. But if you're watching live, now's a good time. And last week, instead of doing the Q&A, we did an extended live stream on Friday building a 3D printer, building a really cheap 3D printer. It's $165 for this kit. We built it. Brittany and I put it together and filmed the whole thing. Tomorrow, the build video is going up for that printer, as well as the full 5.5 hours of the live stream, unedited. That'll go up on the channel, the second channel And the main channel will have the sort of edited down experience. So if you guys really want to see what the process is like for putting together a cheap 3D printer, then that's going to be the place to go check it out. It's not really a how-to, it's more of just like our experience. There are plenty of other how-tos out there for the ANET A8, which is the printer that we built. So yeah, look forward to that coming out tomorrow. I'm going to be tinkering with the machine a bunch to try and get it to do what we need it to do. I will be chronicling all of that. Yeah. So look forward to more videos coming out soon with the cheap 3D printer project. The goal is to do everything as low budget as possible. So if we have to use that machine to 3D print new pieces to upgrade it, that's pretty low budget. You know, you already got some filament. You might as well use it to print parts to fix it, to make it better. But other than that, we're going to try not to spend any extra money on it. We want it to do as cheap as possible. So look forward to that. Also, oh my goodness, there's so much going on over here. Brittany put together a playlist. She's been working on her sweeper bot from Destiny. She's got a handful of videos. She did a couple of live streams that got edited down, and then a more of a formal video. So there's a playlist now for the sweeper bot. And of course, the Destiny 2 beta is out this week. Of course, I played it. Of course, I want to make all the things from it. Some really great cameos in the beta with some of our favorite characters like Lord Shax. There's Lord Shax's helmet right there. Cade, of course, is in there. All of our favorites are there. So, yeah, I want to say that the beta is going to be open at some point. I'm not really sure. But we were fortunate enough to get a couple codes through the beta and got to play through it. And it was super fun, and I'm very excited. And, of course, Brittany's excited because she's making a robot. So head on over and check out that playlist if you want to get caught up on the sweeper bot project that Brittany's working on. That's all the updates I have for you guys. Everything is firing on all cylinders. Like I said, we're not in San Diego this weekend. We're filming more and more stuff for you guys. Got a bunch of projects on all the burners. So yeah, we're just going to be focusing on getting a bunch of that stuff done before a little trip to New York to visit our family. But other than that, it is full steam ahead. And it is also time to start answering your questions. Again, punishedprops.com/live is where you go to submit your questions. Thank you, everyone who has already sent a question. I've got a pretty good list of them right here. So I think I'm just going to dive in with both feet and get this party started. The Prop Tarts look ready. I'm ready. I just drank a giant coffee. Let's do this. Gio has the first question. I'm currently building a Light Beyond Nemesis helmet. Which one is that? That sounds like a Destiny thing. I'm just gonna look it up. Yep. Okay, it's the Warlock one with the winglings on it. Got it. I'm using 6mm EVA foam and Pepakura. The problem is, as hard as I try, I have the lines from jointed parts. Basically, it looks blocky and lumpy. Do you have any videos or suggestions to get rid of them? So the lines, I think what you mean is it kind of looks faceted, right? That's kind of what happens with Pepakura files. If the Pepakura files were not designed to be used with foam, odds are good that you're going to end up with that kind of faceted look. With normal Pepakura, where you would make it out of paper or like a heavy cardstock, you would then reinforce it with resin and fiberglass, and then fair it. Fairing is the process of smoothing out those facets. You would do that with something like Bondo, like a body filler, and then doing lots and lots and lots of sanding. Now that might not be completely possible with EVA foam unless, and we've done this before, unless you do that, unless you fiberglass it. There we go. Words are hard today. That's what Brittany did when she built our helmets for the Draugr costumes. Let's see here. Let me grab that. We didn't do videos on those, but we did do a full write-up on there. On our website. So I'll bring that up here real quick and then I'll show you. Basically, though, you're going to be making the surface of that foam rigid. Here we go. So those are the helmets that Brittany built. And just scrolling down, there's the helmet. So Britt used kind of like a Pepakura to get this far. Yeah, you can see. Actually, she did. That's exactly what that is. Those are all Pepakura lines on the helmet there. And then trying it on, those are horns. And then she fiberglassed the helmets. Now, again, this is a drastic step forward as far as technique and how toxic it is and how expensive it is. But then once that surface was nice and rigid, it could be covered in Bondo and then sanded flush. Nice and smooth. Lots and lots of sanding. And then she went back in with a rotary tool to add all of that hammered look. And that's right through the Bondo. You can see that she, even drilling down to make this hammered look, she didn't break through the Bondo. So that is just a really, really thick shell of Bondo. But that really hinges on making sure that you end up with a nice rigid surface to work with. Whoop, there we go. So yeah, but you know, if you're making a big old helmet like that and you want it to be incredibly durable, fiberglassing can get that done for you. So there you go. There you go, Gio. Good luck with that build. And good luck with all the sanding that you have in the future. Have fun. Brittany's in the chat. She says, I have no memory of this build. 2013 was long ago. Yeah, we did those 4 years ago. It's really hard to comprehend. Next question comes to us from Pete. Pete wants to know, what grit sandpaper would you recommend for removing the texture on floor mats and to shape the foam? I've had moderate success with 120 on a sanding wheel attached to my lathe. Usually, if I have to remove like if you have a piece of floor mat, it's got that texture all on one side, I will just run it against my belt sander, and 80 grit is pretty good, I guess, or whatever I have in there. I probably have like 100 grit in there, but 80 grit or 60 would really rip away that texture pretty in a pretty economical fashion. But whatever you have, just a little bit. If you don't have that, it's just a little bit more elbow grease to get rid of that texture. You could also just buy foam without any texture on it. Our friends over at TNT Cosplay Supply have really good non-textured foam, so you've got that going for you. And if you just have a little piece, you can just use a Dremel. It's not as clean, but I like having that big surface of a belt sander, and then you can just hold a piece against it and skim most of it off. So there you go, Pete. As always, the answer is more sanding. Next question here comes from Magically Done Creations. Have you seen the BondicEVO liquid plastic welder tool on Kickstarter? I have not, but there's a link, and I'm going to look at it. It's the world's first liquid plastic welding tool. Basically a pocket-sized, battery-operated, almost instant 3D printer. All right.
Hi, can I show you something really cool?
All right, hold on. Let me mute you for a second.
In this tin is liquid plastic.
Oh, there we go. All right, cool. Let's bring this thing up. This looks kind of cool. Oh, they met their goal. Awesome. It's got a little doodad that I guess I could use some audio.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Oh, and it cures with UV light.
It's instantly hard plastic.
That's
my
cool.
name's Rob, and my business partner, Dr. Tom Offerman in Germany, invented Bondic.
That's pretty cool.
Sadly,
so I've seen similar stuff. I've seen glue like this where it's got a little squeezy bottle. You squeeze it out, and then you hit it with UV light, and it cures right away. That's kind of cool. I don't know why they call it a 3D printer, because I think it's just a way that they use to market it. But liquid plastic welding tool. He's using it to fix a wire cable, like an iPhone charger. There's a little light, and it cures it. It looks like it'd be good for repairing little things. That's kind of cool. But also, super glue does something similar. So I don't know. It looks neat. Sure looks neat. Let's see. When exposed to light, it's transformed into hard plastic in just 4 seconds. I backed it. I'm going to try it on foam to see if it creates a weld on foam as good as contact cement. So here's the thing about that. One, it creates a rigid bond, and foam is flexible. So you may run into some issues there. And secondly, with contact cement, if I have 2 giant sheets of foam and I want to glue them together, I could put contact cement on either surface, let it dry, and then stick it together. If you need UV light to cure that and you smush it together, you can't get light into that surface in there. So that's something to consider. I think where this thing would really shine is in a cosplay repair kit. If you have any rigid parts that need to get glued back together quickly and you don't want to be spraying that super glue accelerant everywhere, then that thing seems like it'd be pretty awesome. What do they want for one of them? $14. Let's see. The 4G starter kit. Why is it called 4G? These guys love all their marketing terms. You get a new starter kit with a tube of the stuff, a light, and a shaping tool. $14 seems pretty Canadian. About $11 US. That seems pretty fair. Cool. Yeah. But super glue seems to do all the same stuff, so I'll probably hold off on buying one. Thanks for pointing that out, Magically Done Creations. He backed it and is going to try it out. So report back with your findings. Very cool. Fujiro Dave. Hey, Dave. Good to hear from you, buddy. He says he's making Rapunzel's crown from Tangled and can't find the appropriately sized gems. They're still supposed to be a specific size and a specific shape. He's resigned to sculpting and molding it. Very good. I can't decide on what resin to suit the color I need. Do you have a recommendation on what to use? I don't have a pressure pot. All right, well, we got a picture here. Thanks for including the... Ooh, that's a good picture, too. Look at that. Rapunzel's crown. So, whatever you're going to use for your resin, you need something that would cure, slowly so that bubbles can get out. Bubbles are really going to be your nemesis here. So that usually means an epoxy. I'm on Smooth-On's website and misspelling epoxy. What would I call that? Epoxy casting. Epoxy. There's a bunch of them. I'll show you what I've used before. DAP Plastics. That's where I've gone to get this stuff. Casting products. Right. There it is. Nope. Easy cast. Here we go. All right. So this stuff is a clear casting epoxy. Easy cast. Smooth-On probably has something similar. I just can't remember what it's called off the top of my head. You can get pigments for this or tints for this to color it. So if you need it to be a specific color for your gem. So the great thing about this stuff is that it cures clear, as the name would suggest, without bubbles. But the thing is, it takes a good long time to cure. It takes like overnight or longer to cure. So, it says ideal for small casts, 6 ounces or less. So basically that's it. We'll have a link to that in the show notes, so you can go check that out and try and find something similar to that where you are. If you have more questions about casting gems, go find Rocket Man Props he's probably on Twitter. He does tons and tons of gem casting. So there you go. There you go, Fuzor Dave. That ought to work out pretty well for you. Easy cast. All right. And good luck with that build. That's a pretty ambitious crown you're making there. And Brittany's in the chat pointing out there is a size and thickness restriction for epoxy. Of course, all of that will be listed in the product description, so check that out. Let's see. Thanks, Dave, for the question. Next one comes from Sean. Have you ever used plastic wood from DAP as a replacement for Bondo, especially in 3D printing? It is DAP's plastic wood. I have never heard of this before. I don't know why I would use that instead of Bondo. Maybe it's just non-toxic. But here you go. Plastic wood. So this is like some sort of wood filler. Let's see here. Handles is probably just like, I wonder if it's air drying. or if it's catalyzed. I'm not really sure. Solvent-based filler. I think that the main benefit to this is that it can be stained, varnished, painted like wood. The real benefit is that it is similar to wood. I don't know why I would use this over something I already have. I already have lots of Bondo. I already have lots of air drying putties, several different kinds. So unless this stuff is, let's see, this is harmful or flammable, and the vapor is harmful or fatal if swallowed. So it's not. I don't think it's less toxic than the stuff I already use. And I don't know if it's better or dries faster. But anyway, I guess that's an option if you're looking for this sort of a filler for stuff and you can't find, Bondo or their air drying spot putty or any of that stuff, then you could try this stuff. I don't know. But to me, it's a solution to a problem for which I have already solved. Thank you, Sean, for the question. Next one comes to us from Tasmanian Nerd. I'm interested in the software you run to record and edit your videos. You go above and beyond, press record and upload, and the quality shows on your YouTube videos. Thank you. It's a lot of work. So I appreciate that you've noticed. Would it be too meta to do a show on how you record and edit your shows? I've done that. You're in luck. It would probably be worth at some point doing an update on that. We'll put a link in the show notes to editing, how I do the editing. I think I did. Yeah, I did. There will be a link in that link to another video I did showing how I film my videos. And just from the thumbnail, I can tell that I don't use that camera anymore and I don't use that audio recorder anymore. But the ideas are all the same. I'll give you a brief rundown verbally right now of my process. But again, there'll be a link in the show notes. You can go check that out. Both show how I film and how I edit it. Basically, I have some cameras. Right now, I'm using the Panasonic GH5. I had an LX5. This is the GH5. So this is new. I saved up and bought this recently to upgrade from my Nikon D7000. Just hiding up here. This guy has been a trooper. I bought this in 2012. I've had this for 5 years. I've filmed well over 400 videos with this camera. But the idea is the same. I film my process with this or that, with either one of my things. And for most of our builds, what I'm doing is a build that lasts longer than a day. So I kind of do like a loose shot list in my head. I know which shots I need to go in the final video. So as I'm working on a thing, I'll go, oh, this needs to be explained in the video. I'll point the camera at what I'm doing. I'll film it. I don't worry about the audio at all because I do voiceovers later. Again, you can do it your own way. That's just how I do it. Then when the project is finished, I go review all the footage and I write a script. It's a kind of a loose script, more like an outline. Then I put a lav mic on. I've got these guys here. Whoop. Little lav mic and recorder. So this is how I get good audio of me talking. And I talk to the camera and I do an intro, I explain the whole build, and then I do an outro and add whatever relevant information to the project as is necessary. And then the build footage and the talking to the camera footage all go into Adobe Premiere. That's where I do my editing on this computer right now. And then I usually go and I edit the talking to camera part. I edit really to the audio so that it's got a good pace, me talking, explaining everything. And then I go back and I grab all the build footage and I place that in the parts of the video where I explain those things happening. Having a shot list or either a physical shot list or a good one in your head. I've done this enough now where I can just do it in my head. Becomes really, really useful at that point to make sure you don't miss it. Because then you'll have to go in the video, you'll have to say, well, the next part I did this thing, but I forgot to film it. So I'm just going to stand here and talk about it. Which you can do, but it's really better to show instead of tell. show don't tell. This is a visual medium. And then that's generally the process. It all gets edited together and outputted and put on YouTube. It's a lot more. There's a lot more to it than that, but that's just the general process. Thank you for the question, Tasmanian Nerd. And I hope you go check out some of those videos we did if you want to deep dive into our process. Next one comes from Alexander. I've built a 40K tech priest for wearing in a LARP, and the need to run about the countryside and getting wailed on with foam chainswords occasionally adds a couple of different requirements. I bet it does. Since I'm looking at possible future costumes, what would you recommend is the most durable option to varnish and coat the paint to protect against heavy wear and tear? Well, you said varnish. That's my preferred method to seal a paint job. But the best way you can really get your foam costume to be super durable, including the finish, is to seal all of it with many, many coats of latex rubber. That's how our friends over at Artyfakes do theirs, and their LARP stuff is indestructible. Basically, though, the latex rubber you get, the Poly Latex 60 that we like to use, it's white when it's liquid, but when it dries, it's clear. So you could put any pigment in there. We just use acrylic paint so that your base coat of color is in the rubber. So if you have something metallic, you could mix in some metallic silver paint, brush on or spray on like a crap load of rubber to make a nice thick coat of rubber that is pigmented your base coat of color. That coat of color will never get worn away or rubbed away from wear and tear. Now, additional layers of color can be brushed on top of that, including more pigmented latex or other paints, like my Mechanist helmet was all done with oil, rubber cement paints. But really, if you want a durable color finish, then you want to incorporate your colors into whatever you're sealing it with. So if you do end up sealing it with something like Mod Podge, you could mix acrylic paints into that too. But the latex rubber is just absolutely bulletproof. Well, not really. Don't get shot. But it's very durable. Is what I'm trying. That's all I'm trying to say. But yeah, go check out the stuff that the folks at Artyfakes are doing with their workshops and their classes and their prop and costume stuff. They are kind of like the gold standard for really good looking, really durable foam props for LARP and cosplay. Thanks, Alexander. Next one here comes from Christy from K-Pod Cosplay. What's your backstory? How did you discover your love of fabrication? Well, that's a pretty deep topic that I could go on with for a long time. But I'll give you the short story, the truncated version. My mom, both my parents are retired, but my mom, for 25 years, 20 or more, I think, was an art teacher. So she was always inspiring us to be creative. My dad, among many other things, is a very handy person. He had help, but he built our house. He builds and refinishes and fixes boats. When I was 15, we rebuilt a car. We got a 1968 Volvo P1800 and stripped it down to bare metal. Took all the parts off of it, fixed them all up, reassembled it, and it works. We just were always doing really manual and creative things, just always building stuff in our house. My dad would just leave tools around. I don't know how smart that was, but just leave tools and materials around. And so long as we didn't take stuff that he needed, we could just take hunks of wood and like make tree forts and stuff. We were always just encouraged, or at the very least never discouraged from taping things together and gluing things together. So both my parents are very creative, active people. And yeah, that's kind of where I got my start making stuff. Good question. Thank you, Christy. Let's grab another one here. This comes to us from Otherworld Cosplay, who's been hanging out with us in the chat. I see you in there. How do you solve issues with helmet sizing, if it's too big or too small? Well, I have a head cast of myself. Or technically, it's a head cast of my twin brother, but our heads are the same size. So whenever I pattern helmets, I pattern it off of that helmet or that head, and then I know it'll fit me. So we have a video on how to make a really, really good head casting. So you're going to need help. Get some friends together, do some life casting. So it really comes down to the commitment. If you're committed to making really good, really well-sized helmets, then get a head casting made. Get your friends together, do some head casting. If you all go in on the materials, it's not that expensive. You can have a party all weekend long. Everyone makes a copy of their own head. And then from that, forever, you'll be able to make perfect templates for all sorts of headwear that'll fit you perfectly. So there you go. Make a head casting. Do it. All right. Thank you, Otherworld Cosplay. Next one here comes to us from Mr. Button. What classes did you take at SUNY Alfred? Have you been back to the campus since then? The only time I visited the Alfred State campus after I graduated was I went back for Hot Dog Day once. Hot Dog Day was a thing in Alfred. That was after I was only there for 2 years to get my associate's degree. Then I went to SUNY Oneonta to finish getting my bachelor's. And at some point during those next 2 years, I went back for Hot Dog Day. But since then, I haven't been back to Alfred. I don't suspect I ever will. There's not really anywhere. I'm not that into Alfred. What classes did I take? So I was in the computer art program. It was kind of weird though, because I took like 6 classes a semester, which was a lot. They crammed a lot of course hours at us into those 2 years to get our associate's degree. And I took a lot of the sort of basic general classes like algebra, college algebra, and technical writing, and sociology, and bunch of other crap. Usually it was like 3 classes like that per semester, and then 3 art classes. In hindsight, I figured if I'm going to school to learn art, then I should probably have been taking more art classes, only art classes. I don't know. So yeah, we took like figure drawing. We took 3D design classes. We took what else did we do? I don't know. This was 15 years ago. More than 50. This was a while. This was a while ago. Hard to remember. I remember drawing. I remember doing some very basic computer art classes. We did some stuff with Dreamweaver and Flash and Maya and Photoshop, and it was all very generic, very general, a little bit of everything. And I didn't really get a feeling coming out of that I had really I was any good at anything in particular. So yeah, that's my SUNY Alfred story. Go Pioneers. Alfred State Pioneers. Thank you, Mr. Button. Jeffrey here wants to know, what 3D printing material is your favorite? What glue and finishing bondo do you recommend for 3D prints? I just like printing with PLA because it is easy. Every chance I have to try ABS has turned into just a bummer. It's the best way I can tell. I don't know. I think that I could totally get way better at printing with ABS if I put in the time. But on the flip side, if I print something in PLA and it just works out perfectly, then I don't really feel compelled to work on making ABS work. Besides, most 3D printing FDM machines these days and companies and everything are really on the PLA train. For finishing the bondo, I actually really like the 3M acryl green spot putty. It's quite good. I use that. If you watch the Thirst Zapper video, I use that in that video. So go check that out. And for glue, usually just super glue. Again, in the Thirst Zapper video. Go check that out. Alex in the chat says they should make business classes a requirement. They really should, shouldn't they? For some reason, 4 years of art school, not one business class. So I left that being kind of okay at a bunch of different art stuff, but no good at making money. Next question comes to us from GTC30. What's a good airbrush to get as a beginner? That's a great question. I have a video on that. Beginner airbrush basics over on our channel. We will, of course, link to that in the show notes. Oh my God. Mute that, Bill. Anyway, I have a video talking about exactly that. Working on some fun airbrush projects. But basically, just get an airbrush, no matter what it is. Whatever you have access to, go get it and use it and get used to it and practice with it. Harbor Freight sells an airbrush kit that's got an airbrush or a couple of airbrushes and a compressor. Just go get that and tinker with it and get used to it and get good at it. Whatever you get will be better than whatever you have, which is nothing. So just go get any airbrush and use it. That's it. All right. Good talk. Thanks to GTC30. Let's grab another one here. This is from Edward. I'm making a Vivian cosplay from Witcher 3 for my girlfriend. Her bird form has two kinds of feathers, dark green contour feathers that I'm making out of 2mm foam, and yellow down feathers, which I'm not sure what to make from. Needs to be thinner than the contour feathers, and real feathers have been too fragile to work. I thought about using fabric dipped in latex, but I was wondering if you had any ideas. What you might look for is like a vinyl fabric. You can paint them with Dupli-Color makes vinyl spray paint for seats and cars. I don't know if they'll have the right color for you, but vinyl is a bit thicker than normal fabric and very durable. You can get it with different textures and stuff too, so that might work out pretty well for you. Or make the contour feathers out of a slightly thicker foam and use the 2mm foam for the down feathers. That might work for you. You could even use, as crazy as it sounds, but you could use like a cardstock, like thicker paper for your down feathers. Yeah, so there's a couple things for you to try. Really, you're just gonna have to tinker and see what works. But you might find that the vinyl cloth works out really well. You can cut it with scissors. It's fairly cheap. And if you're going to paint it, use that Dupli-Color spray paint that they sell at automotive stores for painting seats, vinyl seats. Thank you, Edward. Let's keep moving here. Chris Sostum says, any tips for layering paint? I keep getting fingerprints. I've tried an airbrush and rattle cans. Is this a humidity thing? I live in Alabama. It might be a humidity thing. Really, it might just depend on that and drying time. You may have to spray on your first layer of paint and let it dry for a couple of days. It really depends on what paint you're using. If you're using enamel paints, they can take days to dry, especially if you live in a humid area. So use paints that will dry faster. Acrylic paints dry faster than enamels. Or do your base layer of enamel paints and let that thing dry for a few days. It may take that long for it to dry completely before you can touch it without getting any fingerprints on it. Again, days. It might take days. I know it's crazy, but that might be the case. If you're more impatient like I am, then work with acrylic paints, especially if you have an airbrush. Nice thin layers of acrylic paint. Let it dry completely until the tackiness goes away and you don't leave any fingerprints. But really, patience will be your friend here. And also, don't use enamels. Thank you, Chrysostom. Next one here is from Colton. After priming a prop, do you start the detail painting while the primer is still a bit tacky, or wait for it to fully dry? What painting workflow works best for you? Again, I'm fairly impatient, but usually if I'm working on a prop, I'll try and prime it kind of near the end of the day and let it dry overnight. In general, that's usually what I do. It's just generally better to let everything dry as much as possible. Or if, let's say, you spray on your primer, it's only dried for a couple of hours, or even like 20 minutes. If you're just going to spray a layer of color on it and then let it dry overnight, that would be fine too. So if the primer hasn't had a ton of time to dry, but all you're doing is spraying on a flat layer of color on everything, You could hit it with that and then let it dry overnight or whatever the drying times on your can recommend. It's going to be the touching it while it's still a little bit pliable that's going to cause issues. So if you're handling it or trying to mask on something that's only had a little bit to dry, that's where you're going to run into problems. So so in summary, prime it at the end of the day, let it dry overnight, or prime it and without touching it, hit your base color and then let it dry overnight. Those are all pretty good recommendations. Of course, you'll know right away if you touch it and it leaves a big old thumbprint on there, then you know you didn't wait long enough. All right. Thank you, Colton. Next one here comes from Alex. What's your opinion on Dollar Tree foam board for prop making? Well, I'm going to guess here that you mean foam core. And I'm not quite sure if that's the same as foam board, but it might be. I don't know if dollar store foam core is different from, I don't know, name brand foam core from Staples or wherever. But it's really cool. It's cheap. It's really lightweight. You can do all the work with it with an X-Acto knife. And I think as a beginner material, it's fantastic. I don't use it all that much anymore just because I have lots of other stock material on hand. But it's good for making mold boxes. And especially if you got a youngster that you want to help learn how to make stuff, it's a great way to let them get started. So yeah, foam core is awesome. Foam core, cardboard. Yeah, and if it's from the Dollar Tree, then it's really cheap, which is great. Let's see here. Oh, and Alex is in the chat. He says the paper is easier to remove on the Dollar Tree stuff. I guess if you have to remove the paper, then that's a good feature. Awesome. I haven't really done all that much prop making with foam core. When I got into this, I could afford other materials, so I used those instead. A lot of PVC plastics and stuff, like foamed PVC, like Sintra. Big Chicky has a question. What program do you recommend to finish 3D modeling straight to the printer, start to finish? I really like Fusion 360. I've been getting back into CAD, and I like making space guns and weapons and mechanical looking things, and CAD is awesome for that. And you can literally go, once you've finished modeling a part, there's like a 3D print button. You hit 3D print, click on your thing, and then it poops out an STL file. You can dump that into your slicer of choice, like Simplify 3D or Cura or Slicer, and send it right over to your printer. One stop shop right there. But there are plenty of other programs for 3D modeling, depending on what you'd like to do. If you're into more organic stuff, then what's it called? ZBrush. That's the standard for you. Yeah, but you can get Fusion 360 and use it for free if you're a student or a startup or a hobbyist, which pretty much all of us fall under. So yeah, go give it a try. I like it quite a bit. Thanks for the question, Big Chicky. Next one is from Grail. How difficult would it be to scale a faceplate or mask to your face and attach to a helmet made of Sintra? Again, like I was saying before, if you have a head cast of yourself, this is going to make this whole process way, way easier. So, yeah. And when you ask how difficult that is, how difficult for me, how difficult for a beginner, it's really, you're not going to know until you give it a try. What I would recommend is get yourself a nice head casting. Of course, you can go buy a pre-made head cast that's kind of similar to your head, but it's kind of nice to have one that's exactly the right size. And then start doing some experiments. You're not really going to know until you try it and fail and try and fail and try and fail less and then try and succeed. The bar graph of successes and failures, by the way, go in parallel. You never fail less. And you only succeed if you're willing to fail as much as it's parallel. All right. Thanks for the question, Grail. Good luck on that build. You could do it. I believe in you. Kellen wants to know, what is the best way to create a joint between two foam pieces, such as a thigh and shin piece? I really like using straps. Nylon webbing is awesome. Now, this all depends on what it's supposed to look like for your particular costume. So if it's medieval or something, you could use leather. You could use actual leather to attach like the two pieces together. Sometimes the pieces don't need to actually be strapped together. Just the thigh could be attached to your thigh, the fabric of your undersuit, and the shin could be attached to a boot. It really depends on the way it's supposed to look. But if you just need two pieces to be attached together, you could run a piece of nylon webbing between them, and then one would hang off the other one. Those can be hot glued together. You could use snaps or Velcro so that you can make them removable. Sky's the limit. Again, experiment. See what works for you. Thank you, Kellen. Got a couple more here. This one comes to us from Christy. I've been working on sculpting Heimdall's daggers from Thor, the Dark World. He had daggers? I don't remember his dagger. There's a picture here, and this looks really cool. Check that out. That looks awesome. I like that a lot. Looking pretty good so far. Let's see the question. I ended up making the daggers from freeform air and then weaving craft foam to make all the details. But now I'm not sure how to prime and seal the entire piece. Suggestions. So it really depends on what your final output is going to be. If you're going to mold and cast this thing, you're going to want to make sure that that EVA foam gets sealed really, really well. I would use an epoxy for that. I would go with something like Epsilon Pro. Now, that is going to fill in a lot of your detail. So try and be as thin and gentle as possible. But it's going to make a nice durable coat on the outside of it that could then be sanded and nice and smooth, and it could work out pretty well for molding and casting. If you're not going to mold and cast it, then you just need to seal it well enough to paint, which could mean just putting on maybe some Mod Podge or even just painting it. You know, it really depends on how durable it needs to be. It's up to you. Of course, you could make a small scale test piece or several of them and try a couple of things. Personally, that's what I do. If I'm not quite sure how a particular finish is going to work out for a thing I'm working on, if I have that piece, I set it aside and make some small scale tests and I try them out. I try out lots of different materials. That's why I have one of everything in my shop in there. I have latex, I have Mod Podge, I have Epsilon, I have Epsilon Pro, I have Uracoat, I have what else? I have lots of different things in there because I try each one to see how well it works for that particular project to solve that particular problem. Everything we make is a prototype. You are building a prototype. This dagger is a prototype, which means that you're not always going to have the perfect answer ready to go to finish off that thing. But I'll tell you what, it looks pretty great so far. So I have a feeling you'll pull it off. Keep up the good work. Thank you, Christy, for the question. I got one more here. This is from Taco Casserole. Have you used Polylatex 60 for slip casting? No, I have not. If so, do you have a recommended dilution ratio? Is it different than coating for foam? I don't know. But I do know Frankie Polito did a video. Let's see here. Tested District 9. So when I worked on the District 9 rifle with Tested, Frank did the hand. And I did. There's Bill. Look at me doing my thing. There's Frank explaining. Oh, where is it? Oh, that's me. Hold on. Just skipping through here. This is the mold that Frank made. And that he did the slip casting. Now, I don't know specifically which latex he used. But he may go into it in this video. Wait, let's see. What's Frank saying?
It should gather enough on the surface then we'll just dump it out.
And that's just based on your experience. You know, that much time gives you a wearable skin where it's going to be thick enough and rough.
Kind of roll it around.
Yep.
And just fill it up.
Doesn't look like he's diluting it at all. Whatever he's
Not
using,
quite
he's just
full
pouring
yet.
straight from the
So I
bottle.
want to just kind of roll it around.
Anyway, Frank talks about that. So we'll link to that video. You guys can go check that out. You can also watch the video and see me in it, which I think is pretty cool. There you go. So Frank knows about a lot more about slip casting than I do. Go do what Frank does. All right, that is it for the questions that we have on the doc. So thank you guys so much for bringing them and bringing your A game. You guys are awesome. Thank you guys so much in the chat and the Prop Tarts for hanging out today and being awesome. Hopefully some of you guys are over at Comic-Con this weekend. We will not be there again, but if you are there, then go find Ted. Go say hi to Evil Ted. He's there right now. I believe he's doing some kind of meetup. Go find Ted and say hi. Tell him we say hi. Other than that, we're just gonna keep cranking out the content this week. The rest of this next week. Next week, I believe I will be in New York. Let me look at the calendar right now. It's July. Yes, next Thursday I will be in New York visiting family. So we're gonna bump the Q&A to Wednesday. So same thing, only we'll do it on Wednesday. That's all I have for you guys today. Thank you again so much for hanging out today, Prop Tarts. You guys are awesome. Thanks for bringing your questions. And we will see you guys in the next Q&A. So bring more questions. We'll see you all next week.